Hopefully a couple of you won a door prize, and we'll talk a little bit more about the contents of that bottle, your cocktail for tonight, if you will. Someone was disappointed there weren't margaritas, and I'm really sorry about that. But it's true there are not, okay? The bad news is you may be losing your keys. You may walk into the room and forget why you went there in the first place. You're also losing your muscle. You're losing your bones. You may be losing your marbles. Some of you identify with that. So physical activity is actually those things that just increase caloric expenditure during any given day. So they may be up and down stairs to do laundry or housework if you live in a 2-story house. They may be gardening. They may be taking a dog for a walk. They may be golfing. So those kinds of activities, much greater energy expenditure than sitting here. So every 5 minutes, we'll do laps around the room just to make sure. Just check. Are you an athlete? Are you just starting out? Are you restricted by conditions and limitations that you have to deal with and work around for activity? So I want you to think of it this way. Age is just a number. We peaked at our muscle mass at about age 25. From then on, it's been downhill. So, can you feel it? And after the age of 85, it goes faster than that. It's probably the only part of us that goes faster, but that's what's happening. We peak at bone density at about age 30, and we start to lose that at about age 35. So we kind of maintain a steady. But then if we're not doing something about it, and very often even if we are, we're losing bone density at a rate of about 1 to 3% a year. And if you're a female and you go through menopause, which may last anywhere from about 3 to 5 years, you lose about 3 to 5% each of those years. Then it returns back down to a lower number, but it never returns to the other loss. It's still a little bit higher than that. Students in the room may think that they're here to help with assessments later and that they don't need to tune in right now, but they're the only ones in the room who can really do something about their bone density right now. The rest of us can just try to hold on to it, because it's going to go. But very recently, as far as blood sugar levels go, they compared the difference of walking 3 15-minute bouts of exercise during a day to the benefit of walking 45 minutes at a time. The benefits were equal as far as stabilizing blood sugars. But they also looked at which walk, what time of day had the most benefit, and found that a 15-minute walk after the evening meal was most beneficial to maintaining blood sugars. So that's for people who are borderline diabetes. So the message I take away from that is, for those of us who don't want to get there, it's probably still a good idea. Said very recently about cardiovascular exercise and the benefits, and that our endurance capacity does not change and diminish with age like we once thought it did. Our endurance and our cardiovascular capacity diminishes with inactivity. So let me know if you've heard this quote: inactivity is the new smoking. And we've just kind of gotten comfortable and settled into the fact that we are slowing down because we're aging. And that's not true. We're aging because we're slowing down. What you're doing, of course, is very specific to the results that you're getting. And cardiovascularly and strength-wise, you may be extremely fit, but find that your balance and those fine-tuned motor skills and stabilizers are a little dormant and a little bit lazy. So you've got to work on that specificity. Isn't that the way it is? You wake up in the morning and you say, okay, my day today, my knee's good, my shoulder's good, it's going to be a good day. Or not, right? We can sometimes, from the very people who we take as our authorities and our credibility resources, get information that tells us to go exercise, that we need to be lifting weights, but beyond that, not get very specific instruction. So you've got to seek that out. It's not enough if you have osteoporosis and your goal is to decrease bone losses, because at the time you get diagnosed with osteoporosis, you were probably beyond age 50, you're probably 60, 65, 70, and you may have fallen, and that's how we found out that you had osteoporosis in the first place. So you're not probably going to add bone density, but the goal would be to slow it. If the average person loses from 1 to 3% a year, and after a year you've exercised and found that you've not lost any, that's a significant slowing or stopping of that loss, and that's what we're looking for. We're not going to find that we've increased it at that point, but we want to slow it, we want to gain strength and balance to prevent a fall. Water and aqua exercise is a wonderful vehicle for fitness, but it is not your best friend if you have osteoporosis. It is taking you out of gravity, which is your best friend. It is removing those effects on you. And so it's actually taking time away that might be better dedicated to strength training, where we can get the muscles to pull on the bones and to get those forces acting on the bones to make the bones get stronger. Now, if you have arthritis and osteoporosis, you have to work with the greater of those two evils first. About from the shoulders down. For just a few minutes, we're going to focus on above the shoulders. Would you all just take your 2 index fingers and put them on either side of your head? And repeat out loud, this is the hardest 6 inches to lose. We fall right back into the same pattern. And we do the first exercise we usually do, and the second one, and the third one, even though we just heard, and we nodded our head the whole time that that made sense and it was logical, we don't do it. But your brain on good fuel also looks like this. The Mediterranean diet, and it's a lot like the paleo diet, which is probably a little bit more popular or pop for all of you, but mostly fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, okay, and heavily oriented toward that side. Some lean meats, lean fish, that's about it, okay? Your brain on good fuel, the new study finds it also probably helps thinking and memory. Those people who are on the Mediterranean diet improve their cognitive function by 20%. I don't know about you, but some days I need that 20%. To take every breath that you can, making choices to be as active as you possibly can. There's 4 pillars of exercise, and these are on purpose, listed in a specific order. Strength, cardiorespiratory fitness, flexibility / mobility. And I'm gonna see if I can sway you to thinking more about mobility than flexibility. And then the last is balance. Wherever you are is the right time to start, but if you start thinking about actively aging and what you'll be like at 70 when you're 40, or if you didn't, you'll wish you did, is what you need to be thinking. So those in this room all influence somebody younger. Now's the time to tell them to start acting on what will happen later and what their lack of strength training now is doing to them or will do them 10 or 20 years from now. Muscles and for your bones. Your bones will respond better to more load. And so will your muscles. So both muscles and bones, you've got to go both ways. And a lot of us are afraid of lifting too much. For fear we're going to get bulky. And you really have to spend an awful lot of time and trying really, really hard and changing your nutrition and changing your diet in order to get bulky. Now there are different body types, and so some of you will argue that's not true. And I gain muscle really easily. And there are ways to tweak your routine so that we can help you with that. But repetitions of even 6, of 8, of 10 are ideal for bone density. Beyond that, we're not doing quite enough good. Now the muscle will benefit from doing higher repetition ranges in terms of more endurance, a little less strength per se. So endurance and stamina are also important to us, but we can get that carryover from cardiovascular exercise. So it's when you take your time to truly do your strength training that you want to lift heavy and fatigue at about 10. Fatigue defined as I start to lose my form and I can feel that I'm using other muscles that weren't necessarily supposed to be working, and then I'm done. 2 seconds out, maybe 3 to 4 seconds to set it down. So in other words, slow and controlled, no momentum. but not super slow. That's the average and recommended range of timing for repetition. So typically, that's what we would compare. Fatiguing at 10 on that kind of timing. Part of the subjects in the study were given that kind of a protocol. The other half of the subjects were given a protocol that was more of a power set, given that they were going to push out in 1 and they were going to lower down in a slow 4 count. So they would push and then come back. And after 6 months, the group that did the power, the push and then recover, had improved in their bone density more than the slow controlled group. Raise your hands. How many of you are familiar with the term Tabata, or high intensity interval training? Okay. Okay. Repeat after me. I will never, ever, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Do a high intensity interval of something that I have not built a basic foundation for at a slower level. People who are used to walking regularly or running regularly are cross-training, because that's smart. I'm going to take off and not going to do my regular thing. And going into high-intensity interval training, doing jump squats, and doing what's called burpees, right? And doing plyometric lunges for as hard as they can for 20 seconds until they feel like they want to throw up, then recovering for 10 seconds and doing that for a total of 8 times. And thinking that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with interval training. People who have emphysema work well with interval training. Athletes have used interval training for years. But the concept should only be applied when you have a base foundation of cardiovascular strength and the muscles are pliable and used to the exercises that you're going to be doing at a higher level. So you've got to think about what you're doing in the progression, and we sometimes are losing track of that in the fitness area. So make sure that you quarterback for yourself and see the forest from the trees here. But it's probably not serving us really well simply to touch our toes and call that a judge of your flexibility is great. We're probably more concerned with whether or not we can put on our socks and our shoes, whether or not we can bend over to pick something up that's fallen down on the floor, and or whether or not we can get back up if we've fallen down to the floor, right? Better yet, tear a page out of a book, hold it up and read a paragraph while you stand. Make your brain focus on something while your body is focused on something else. That is dual tasking. Well, why don't you go and do that in here? There's nobody in here to bother you. Well, actually, you need to say, no, I need to be disturbed. After the age of 30, it's a downhill slide. So we can say that after 50, it's going a little faster. At 60, we're picking up some momentum. And at 70, you may not think you're going fast, but you're going fast. Okay? And it gets worse. After about 85, it's really a great loss. 30 grams of protein, 3 different times a day, makes optimal protein or muscle protein synthesis. If you have a meal that has only 14 grams of protein in it, it's inadequate for optimal muscle protein synthesis. This is not whether you're an athlete, or whether you're 20, or whether you're 40, or whether you weigh 100 pounds or you weigh 200 pounds. It's all of us, every day. Too many times when we're trying to lose weight, what we're losing is muscle. And in the result, we're getting fatter. Those people who participated in a program, in an organized program, and then the program ended, those people who had some kind of follow-up, whether it was web-based or personal-based, on a regular accountability checkup, did better maintaining their status after the program end than those people who had none. Fat removal is the goal, not weight loss. So be careful about just counting calories and cutting back, because oftentimes what we do cut back is the protein that we need in order to maintain the lean muscle mass. Go!